Well, hello, folks out there in YouTube land. Got a big show lined up for you. Let's get right on into it. All right, so we're going to cover the Lane Kiffin saga. And there's always a saga whenever Lane Kiffin's involved because that's who he is. We're going to talk about whether he's heading to Auburn. I'm going to tell you why I think so. Also, we're going to talk about whether Lane has grown up since his days as a USC assistant. All right, so talking about Lane Kiffin. I've been watching this guy for a long time because understand he has been the head coach of my two favorite teams at various times of his life. When I was a little kid, my favorite team was the Oakland Raiders, and I loved them. Kenny Stabler, Cliff Branch, Dave Casper, all those guys won the Super Bowl, and I was an Oakland Raiders fanatic. I was also a Vols fan, but when I got into college and in late high school, I really became more of a Vols fan than an Oakland Raiders fan, and that's really about the only two teams I really cheered for. And now I've, the last 20 years or 30 years, I've been insanely a Vols fan to the point of it's really not even close, and the Raiders are a far distant second. But I have a history of this guy coaching my teams, and it's not been good. Okay, I'll just go ahead and tell you. Now, when you look at this guy's career, he started out at Fresno State, then he went to Colorado State, Jacksonville Jaguars. He was an assistant there. Then he wound up at USC, where he went from tight end to wide receiver coach. Then he wound up being the offensive coordinator there at USC. Well, Al Davis, who of course ran the Raiders, took a liking to him and hired him as an Oakland Raiders coach. And he was really young at the time. He was in his early 30s. I think he was the youngest NFL coach at the time. And he only went from 2007 to 2008. And Al Davis fired him, and it was a big to-do over one thing, and that was his quarterback. And this went all the way back to Al firing him, and it went into the details of it. And I remember this well. And what happened was Davis really wanted Jamarcus Russell with the very first pick. And that's the Raiders had the first pick that year because they were crappy the year before. And Lane Kiffin did not. He did not like Jamarcus Russell in the first round as far as being the very first pick. He didn't think he was going to pan out. He'd met with him. The meeting didn't go well. He just didn't like him. And what it was, Al Davis was absolutely fired up about him because he could throw a ball 70 yards off his knees through the goalpost. And so, Al Davis was all about the bomb. He wanted to go long with every pass, and he just loved stretching the field. And he thought this guy could stretch it better than anybody. But Lane just didn't think this guy was going to pan out. And as we know, Jamarcus Russell wound up being one of the biggest busts in the history of the NFL. And Al Davis was getting a little bit long in the tooth, so to speak, and was getting a little bit he just wasn't sure what was going on anymore. So he fired him, and Tennessee hired him. So Tennessee hires this guy, and he comes in and he puts together this dream team of coaches. And many of you will remember this in 2009. His dad, Monty Kiffin, was a defensive coordinator. He had been a great coordinator at Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the NFL. He was excellent. And so we were fired up. We got him and his dad. We had Ed Ogeron as our defensive line coach. So we had a really good coaching staff. And we were fired up, and we'd almost beat Alabama that year. And I think we won 6 or 7 games, but the team was getting better. And he was recruiting really well. So we were all fired up about him and treated him like gold and all of that. And then we get this report that he's heading to USC after 1 year, signed a multi-year contract with us, and just immediately hightailed it back to USC because the coach there had been fired. And they had gone through a list of about 6 or 7 coaches, and they'd all said no because they had a bunch of NCAA problems that they were getting ready to come down on him with a hammer. And he went ahead and took the job anyway, and who knows, maybe he was trying to make his wife happy at the time. But regardless, he stabbed us in the back, put us in a terrible lurch. We wound up hiring that crap Dooley out of Louisiana Tech, and he had a losing record, but he had a good last name, I guess. And we just went down an epic trail of misery after that. And something that I've never really forgiven him for that, and probably never will. That was just such a crap thing to do. But, now we've got a Josh Heupel, so that helps. I'll go ahead and tell you. So anyway, he's there at USC for 3 or 4 years. He gets canned on the tarmac. Wasn't even allowed to travel back with the team. And then Saban picks him up off the trash heap, makes him a coordinator there, offensive coordinator, because he knew he was really good at offense. And he took him back as the, what do they call that, coaches, the rehab center for wayward coaches at Alabama. So he was there for a couple of years. And, of course, Saban wore him out on the sideline because he was always wanting to pass the ball or do something that Saban didn't like. And he wound up taking a job at Florida Atlantic Tech, junior college, etc., and had some success there. Of course, winds up at Ole Miss. So I'm just not thinking that this guy is going to make a good decision or a loyal decision. See, Ole Miss hired him when nobody else, was too fired up about him, treated him great, paid him great. He's making over $7 million a year. I just don't see him being loyal to Ole Miss. I just don't think that's in his DNA to be loyal to a team. It just doesn't matter to him. It's about the next stepping stone. And, of course, that next stepping stone is what got him going down that bad path. He knows he screwed up going to USC instead of sticking with Tennessee. He knows it. He's all but said it. And, he regrets it. But he can't help it. He just can't. He's like this.
Some men you just can't reach, which is the way he wants it. Well, he gets it.
Yep. He wants it, so he gets it. So I think he'll go to Auburn because of all of those reasons. I think he'll get a good pay raise. He's been offered more money at Ole Miss. Why has he not signed? That's another reason why I think he's going to take the Auburn job. First of all, he should have signed that if he was going to be loyal to Ole Miss. Secondly, the team's falling apart, okay? They've lost the last 2 games. Arkansas beat the snot out of them. It was something like they were down 35 or 40 points at one point. It was just a total butt whooping. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, if he was concerned about Ole Miss, he would have shot these rumors down weeks ago, because this is what happens when a team gets in a mental funk. They quit trying because they're like, well, our coach is getting ready to leave us, and they get mad and they get just all out of sorts, and it's just a bad situation. And I think he's going to take the job Friday. Maybe Saturday, whatever. It'll be after the Egg Bowl, which is Thursday. So I think we're going to know either Monday of next week or Friday or Saturday or something like that. But I just think he's going to take the job. He's just not the type of guy that can stick in one place unless he thinks it's the top of the hill, and that's what he thought at USC. He didn't realize he was going to lose 25 scholarships every year for 4 years or whatever it was, and that he was going to be thin. And, of course, that made him terrible, and he just made a bad decision. And he basically wound up getting blamed for it when it wasn't his fault. But, hey, you shouldn't have gone back into a crap hole. So the people I feel bad for are the Ole Miss Rebs. They thought they had a coach they could count on. He's done a great job there for a couple of years, and now the team seems to be falling apart a little bit. So, I just think given his history and given the way things are going currently, that he's probably about to take this Auburn job. I could be wrong. I might be off base on this. And for the Ole Miss fans, I know it sucks. But you know what? I would not be a bit surprised if y'all wind up with Hugh Freeze, which would not be a bad trade. Hugh Freeze is a winner. He's beat Alabama twice. And beating Nick Saban is like beating Joe Louis.
He beat Joe Louis's ass.
That's right. He did whoop Joe Louis' ass.
That's right. He beat his rear end. And here's the thing. Lane's never beat him. Hugh Freeze has beaten Nick Saban twice. And that was back when nobody was beating Nick Saban. So I don't think that would be a bad trade for them. And as far as the NCAA problems and all that, look, I said this about Auburn the other day. They took our guy, Bruce Pearl, that had a show cause against him for 3 years, and it's worked out perfect for them. I think Hugh Freeze, who's doing great at Liberty, who is gettable for a reasonable amount of money, would be a good choice. That's just my opinion. You may completely disagree, but that would be a good swap. And I think Hugh Freeze would stick with you, and, you're just going to have to take that risk. Look, any coach is a risk, but at least Hugh Freeze is a winner. And Lane Kiffin, while he's also a very good coach and a winner, you just can't trust him. You just can't. He's not loyal. So that's just my opinion. And if you like this content, be sure to hit that like button. Lets me know to continue to cover the Vols, the SEC, and all that kind of good stuff. And, of course, the Vols are my team. And if you haven't subscribed, hit that subscribe button. I'd appreciate it. Hit that like button. Doesn't cost you anything. I've only been doing this about 4 months, and I could use some subscribers. Anyway, I hope you did like the content. And we'll see you next time on Sports Talk Jay.